through the different research that I've done in the last few days here, it's going to be kind of all over the place. So I hope that's okay. I don't
That's
really
fine. Yep.
I don't really set questions. I just have it incubating in my head, and then kind of spirit takes it where it needs to go in the moment.
Great.
Um,
Good.
yeah, that was something that Uncle Billy used to always say to me that if there's any kind of monies involved, don't
Hmm.
take part in it because spirit is never for sale. And I've been invited to 3 or 4 different elders conferences in the last little while, and the one main theme along all of them is trying to get the elders to share their knowledge and wisdom before it's forgotten because of just what you say, because of this time. It's so needed at this space and time.
Yeah, I think that's basically the trend. There was a time when, after all this exploitation in the early 20th century, that the Hopi kind of clamped down and said, "This, we've had it." But now, in this new era, this new age that we're going into, of so much world trauma and global disassociation and chaos, that they're saying, well, we better share our knowledge with the world before the whole world self-destructs. And you mentioned doing some sweat lodges. That's really how I got into this whole business of looking at how the ancient people viewed the skies and viewed the stars. I've lived in Arizona for about 15 years, but before that, I lived in South Dakota and in the Black Hills, which is
That must have been, sorry to interrupt, but uh, that must have been one wicked ride in that area at that time.
well, it was after the second Wounded Knee, the Wounded Knee of 1974.
Right.
I got there in '78. So, but the nerves were still kind of on edge,
Yeah.
and things were kind of raw there. But I got into a situation where my wife and I bought some land in the southern Black Hills, and then we were out living on this land. It was 10 acres, beautiful pine trees, and we were living very simply in a trailer house with an outhouse, and no running water, just hauling in our water and so forth. But we found out that the Honeywell Corporation was going to try to put a munitions testing site in the southern Black Hills,
Oh,
and, and they would have been testing these radioactive tipped munitions that, of course, are now scattered in various places like Iraq and so forth. The cancer rate is going to go sky high there, but they were going to test these munitions in this beautiful sacred canyon in the southern Black Hills. So some of us got together and formed what we called is a kind of an ad hoc organization called the CIA, the Cowboy and Indian Alliance.
I like it.
We got together. We got talking with some Lakota Sioux on the Pine Ridge Reservation. We went to the tribal council meetings and talked about what the Honeywell Corporation was trying to do to the sacred Black Hills. And we talked to some AIM members, specifically Dennis Banks. And then we met Charlotte Black Elk, who is a person that is the great granddaughter of the famous Nicholas Black Elk, who wrote the classic book Black Elk Speaks. And for anyone who wants to learn about Native spirituality, this is a great book to read. He lived in the latter part of the 19th century into the 20th century, and he had a great spiritual vision on top of Harney Peak, which is the highest point in the Black Hills. And it's basically one of the most spiritual books out there as far as a Native American literature is. And she was trying to spread his legacy and the traditions of her people. at the time she was talking about, and she even passed out Xerox copies of an essay she was writing, or she had written about a star map that corresponds to various places in the Black Hills. And this star map was in the form of a great celestial buffalo. The backbone of this buffalo was Orion's belt. The nose of the buffalo was the Pleiades. The tail of the buffalo was the star Sirius. So this huge constellation in the sky was conceptualized as a buffalo, and it had various points in the Black Hills corresponding, each star corresponding to various points in the Black Hills, where traditionally the Lakota would migrate to these spots during a certain part of the year and do a specific ceremony. And they'd make kind of a round. They'd migrate around the Black Hills and go to these spots and do a specific ceremony and then move on to the next spot. So they'd honor this kind of celestial buffalo by doing these ceremonies in the spot corresponding on the earth to the particular star. And I just found that fascinating that they would have this correspondence of sky and earth, as above so below is the ancient Egyptian maxim that corresponds to this. And Charlotte was trying at the time to prove a particular point about how long the Lakota had been in the Black Hills, because a lot of the historians claim that the Lakota moved into the Black Hills and were only in the Black Hills since like the early 1700s. But Charlotte had proof that she had a star map on a buffalo hide that proved that the stars were in a different position due to the precession of the equinoxes. The stars were in a different position on this star map than what we see in the sky today. So, this kind of proved her point that the Lakota had been in the Black Hills area for thousands of years, not just hundreds of years, but for thousands of years, and they developed this mythological system of as above, so below. This correspondence between the celestial buffalo and the terrestrial buffalo, represented by the Black Hills. So that really got me going on this idea that the ancient people looked at the sky very differently and had this earth sky or star knowledge that, and many of the native cultures do have this star knowledge that they've carried on.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that they didn't always look up at the sky to see where the stars were, that they had like water pools where it was still water and used the water like a mirror. So they would sit there and meditate, I guess, or go into a spirit and look into the water, and the stars were, of course, mirrored in the water. Is that just somebody blowing hot air, or was that an
No,
actual
no,
way?
I've heard that too, George. Not specifically in terms of Lakota, but I've heard it about South Africans used to do this. I did a trip to South Africa in 2009 and did some research over there with a friend and colleague of mine. And he pointed out various pools of water in the rock that the ancient Bushmen used to look at this and meditate and on these pools of water in which the stars were reflected. So I think that is definitely the case. And I've heard that like the Mayans used to do a similar sort of thing.
I've been through Arizona a few times, and a particular place where I've been a number of times was Hovenweep, which I love Hovenweep. And I remember talking to one of the Pueblos. He was telling me that they were the descendants of the Anasazi. And then I read in one of your things that the Hopi are the descendants of the Anasazi. Can you clear this up for me?
Yeah, first of all, the Anasazi is it's a kind of a romantic term that was used in the 60s a lot, but archaeologists have gotten away from it using this term Anasazi because that is literally a Navajo or Diné word, which means ancient enemy. The Hopi consider their ancestors as the Hisatsinom, the ancient people. That's what it literally means. And different Pueblo groups like the Zuni or the Tewa. There are a lot of different Pueblo groups in New Mexico and Arizona, and they all consider themselves descendants of these ancient people, whatever you want to call them. Anasazi or ancient Puebloans is the archaeological term now used, or they all consider themselves descended from these very early people. And scientists have determined genetically, they've taken bones from some of these ruin sites and they compared them with contemporary Pueblo people living today, and they found great similarity between the two genetic specimens. So, yeah, I think the person you talked to was definitely right on as far as that goes.
Yeah, so they could all be distantly related.
Yeah, I think so. They have a lot of similar traditions. You look at the Pueblo people along the Rio Grande, there are different historical influences there because the Catholic Church made greater inroads along the Rio Grande River than, say, the Hopi Reservation, which the Hopi probably are the greatest to defend their traditional ways and keep out the Catholic influence and the evangelical influence from their traditions.
Yeah, and that country is just it is so spectacularly beautiful that
Oh yeah, that's why essentially why I live here, because
yeah.
it's just we don't have a lot of urban amenities unless you want to go down to Phoenix, which I don't go down to a lot, but I go down there to take a plane somewhere. But
Yeah.
that's why I'm living here. The landscape is it's so magnificent, and you get out driving, and you just see these vast vistas of beautiful, gorgeous, stark landscape. Very few trees. This high desert landscape. The light and the sky is so brilliant, and the stars at night. You could see why the ancient people were very much involved with the heavens and with the skies, because you can see so clearly the constellations and the stars and the Milky Way. It's just amazing.
Yeah.